everyone. Welcome to our roundtable, State of the Field. My name is Alice Joubin, Professor of English and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I wish I could be there in Singapore in person for the World Shakespeare Congress, but our mandate is to stay home, stay put, stay healthy, keep everyone safe. Today, I'm going to speak on the implications of transgender theory on Shakespeare and early modern studies. In Richard Eyre's 2004 film Stage Beauty, the 17th century star Ned Kingston, after a standing ovation for his Desdemona in Othello, returns to the darkened theater to meet his lover, who cajoles him to put on a wig. Kingston retorts, "Would you ask your lady horse to wear a wig to bed?" His lover, the Duke, says, "If it made them more of a woman." The Duke's glib, deceitful reply distorts the truth about Kingston's trans femininity. Kingston rejects cross-gender performance as some kind of convenient fiction about binary genders. The scene invites fluid interpretation of how one's body relates to one's social role. The past 3 decades saw the emergence of new Shakespeare performances that can be read through a trans-positive lens. They raise new questions about the long history of associating trans bodies with bodies in distress and the uses of unstable identities as metaphor for illness. So what are the differences between queer theory and transgender theory? Well, queer theory provides a broad critique of normativities. Queer studies is initially geared more toward debunking compulsory heterosexuality. In contrast, trans studies has a stronger focus initially on atypical bodies and the experiences of trans and non-binary individuals. While queer theory initially grew out of post-structuralism, trans studies draws on disciplines such as the history of medicine, medical humanities, political economy, law, and more. I am expanding trans theory beyond the realm of gender studies to consider the post-human, the transhuman, transgeneric transformation, cyborgs, prosthetic devices, extensions of the human, and the notion of temporal and contextual transness in race, gender, class, and in fact, all forms of writing. The trans lens is a tool for analyzing both performances that interpret gender play explicitly as transitive and works that lend themselves to discussions through the lens of trans aesthetics. This is a theory about acting methods that highlight ambiguous identities. The trans lens regards gender as a set of relationship rather than an imposition or a fixed destination. At our roundtable, we have spoken at length on words that are not on the page, words that postdate Shakespeare, and speculative philology. So here, I would like to add performance studies method to the conversation. Performance studies methods provide tools that capture transformative cultural practices. Performance produces synchronous layers of social meanings of race and gender, particularly. Performance, both as an artistic form and as a critical concept, adds nuance to the artifice of race and gender by illuminating the ways race and gender evolve over time and in different social spaces. Performance dislodges the idea that text alone can encompass everything the words connote. For example, cisgender textual interpretations of Twelfth Night typically regards Viola Cesario as a temporary act to score personal gains in a patriarchal society. The gender nonconformity is assumed to be a pragmatic plot twist rather than embodied trans experience. In performance studies terms, gendering and race-making are technologies of representation that can restructure social expectations. Further, the playing space itself is a transitory space through which actors and characters traverse. So opening up narratives that were regarded as normative in some way, it can be heteronormative, homonormative, normative gender expressions. The trans line suspends the unconscious bias in institutionalized cisgender sexism, rather than indulge in the suspension of disbelief. Cis sexism has given privileges to cisgender scholars, cisgender artists to claim authority and authenticity, and assume cisgender status of all characters. The function of my trans lens is one of heuristic rather than diagnostic, because this theory sustains the contingency of characterization without pinning down character's gender. The trans lens would capture Ned Kinistan's gendered experience in the film Stage Beauty that defied categorization, and aesthetic forms that have been used to represent cross-gender practices, including gender accessories such as a wig or a mustache. In honor of our host society, Singapore, I would like to offer case studies that keep our conversations focused on global sites. Naturalistic acting sometimes makes cross-gender enactment invisible because it often defaults to a cisgender position. And if we look at Trevor Nung's 1996 film Twelfth Night, we see an example there. There are exceptions, of course. This year, 2021, a Taiwanese film came out called As We Like It. The film uses Franco-Taiwanese mixed-race actress Camilo Chalong's cross-gender and bilingual performances of Celia, and it features two openly trans actresses backpassing acts to queer As You Like It. So the comedy As You Like It has traditionally been read as a cisgender narrative. The film does away with such binary gender accessories as mustaches or wigs. It presents characters of all genders, played by actors identifying as women, matter-of-factly, without apology or justification. So do check out the Taiwanese film As We Like It. In contrast, heavy stylization of the presentations of characters such as those in Akira Kurosawa's 1957 samurai film of Macbeth, entitled Throne of Blood. This film draws attention to the gendering and race-making practices themselves. In Throne of Blood, the significance of gender pronouns is obscured by English subtitles, though the film's witch figure, through their stylized no acting and vocal work, resides in a non-binary space, appearing in a translucent robe and with a halo around them. The genderqueer witch spins yarn in a bamboo hut in a dense forest. They appear to be turning a double-spooled spinning wheel, but the fiber is simply spun from the smaller wheel onto the larger wheel without producing yarn. By moving a domestic chore into nature, the witch queers the otherwise quotidian act, signaling that they reside in a social space between different worlds. The witch can be interpreted as trans. In fact, the act of the act of spinning the wheel empties out the meaning of domestic chore, since it is in a sense not productive, right? Not productive in the heterosexual cisgender sense. So the trans lens enables us to attend to gender play, particularly the liminal paths to gender expression and characters' indeterminate state of being. These performances reveal that gender variance is more than just a dramatic device, or the early modern theater practice of having so-called boy actors play female characters who transform into page boys. But why Shakespeare? Well, the Western canon has historically been given many forms of moral authority. Shakespeare has been used by trans-identified performers and feminists as a tool to deconstruct the gender binary, to challenge the male takers of the cultural heritage. So gender expression that does not match prevailing gender norms is itself a recurring theme and motif in Shakespeare's plays. So Shakespeare studies actually lends itself to trans studies. The early modern gender ambiguity enables our contemporary culture to give some of the characters an elastic inflection in the art of becoming their new selves. Recent studies have shown that trans identities are far from an exclusively recent phenomenon. Artists have used our own historical so-called safe distance to the early modern period as a screen for engaging contemporary gender issues. This trend is a version of what scholar Jack Halberstam has called perverse presentism, a methodology that uses history to denaturalize contemporary articulations of gender and sexuality. And so thinking along these lines, we realize how productive the trans lens can be. For example, in Macbeth, how might we parse Banquo's and Macbeth's questions to the witches? Quote, "You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so." And they also say, "What are you?" Well, the notion that is repeated multiple times in Acts 4 and 5 that leads to Macbeth's fall is, quote, "of woman born." And so in this kind of extremely gendered language, to untangle this, we actually need the trans lens and trans studies theories. How does the phrase "of woman born," first spoken by the second apparition and then repeated by Macbeth, how does that encode transness, or perhaps decode transness and cisgender sexism? Gendering and race-making practices share analogous logics as processes through which people shape and contest their embodied experiences. Gender and race are as much nouns as they are verbs. Gender and race are identity categories as well as social actions. So I would now like to turn from kind of the trans lens as a gender theory to the trans lens as a tool to actually look at transness in race and gender. Gender and race are often intertwined because racialized imaginations often delimit gender practices, and gender-based exclusions often help racial prejudices perform discriminatory acts. The trans lens enable us to attend to racialization and gender play, particularly the liminal paths to gender expression and characters' indeterminate state of being. Performance can reveal that gender variance is more than just a dramatic device. Since film and theater are technologies of gendering and race making, films that feature casts of the same race can and should be read as a race film. Films starring cisgender actors should be read through a trans lens to uncover cisgender sexism and tacit transness in their characters. So combined with performance theories, the trans lens allows us to assess the artifice of gender experiences and the tensions between gendered and raced experiences, encompassing all practices that cut across identities. Trans theory is useful in furthering our understanding of racecraft and gender play, especially characters who question their assigned social roles or move between demarcated social spaces. So thank you for being with us, for attending our roundtable on state of the field, transgender studies. Have a wonderful day.